Hello there! What is going on, everybody? Today we're going to be talking about the rules and Star Wars Legion with its new edition. Like many of you, I have been going through the motions and the growing pains of absorbing all of the new rules while trying to also compartmentalize them from the old rules. And with any new edition or major rules revamp, it can be a difficult process, and I am certainly not immune to those growing pains as well. As a result, of course, not only because of the new rules, but also because of the fact that I have a pretty large platform and doing things like battle reports. It's especially, I guess, it's especially important to me to try to get the rules right. And I'm also only human, and I've failed to hit that mark a couple of times in my recent battle reports. So, with that being said, I am going to focus this video today on 7 rules that I have gotten wrong. These are at least the most egregious. I'm sure these probably aren't the only rules that I've gotten wrong, and I'm sure that these probably won't be the last rules I've gotten wrong. There's reasons for these. Sometimes it's rules from 1.0 that didn't carry over into 2.0. Sometimes it's rules where the devs had said something in a live stream that ended up being slightly inaccurate, but I heard them say it, so I applied that and didn't actually apply the rule. Sometimes it's a brand new rule or it's an errata. And then in other cases, it's rules from a completely different game, because I've also been playing other games. I don't only play Legion. And a similar game to Legion is, Warhammer. And so playing some Warhammer stuff, it has, there's certain rules that have certainly kind of carried over when it's a rule for this game, but not for this game. So with all of that said, I'm going to do this video. I do want to remind you guys to enter to win that $25 Amazon gift card giveaway. You just have to be a subscriber and leave a comment on this or one of my videos. It's as simple as that. I want to start off with our first rule, and that deals with checking for panic. This one was brought up by multiple. This is probably one of the most egregious ones that I definitely got wrong. And this was an older, like a carryover from one of the previous rules revisions that AMG had done, talking about when you go into panic. And it was so you still basically, in a recent game I was playing Black Sun and didn't want to use Dauntless because I didn't want to put them into panic mode, and in that case you don't actually check. So basically right now you're only going into panic at the end of your rally step, which is really cool. It really helps. It makes the game, I think, flow a lot better. But of course, that wasn't always the case, and so that's kind of one of the things to the new rules that, if you don't read over everything, and it's tough to reread an entire new rule book, even pages that you think that you've already gotten. Like a lot of people, you kind of skim the new rules looking for the things that stand out as being the most different, and this was one that I clearly got wrong. The second one is with the POIs. Initially, this was in I think a couple of the battle reports that we've done, but they grant heavy cover now. So if you're contesting a POI, you kind of want to stand behind it if you can. Granted, they're not physically barricades, and you can physically move through them without having to kind of climb over something, but you can't end your movement on them. But the important thing is that they grant heavy cover, and I think I don't think I did this at all in like one of the first battle reports I did with the new rules, and in the most recent one, it's a little easier to forget that they provide heavy cover. One of the things I've done is I've got some 3D printed ones now that have a little bit of height to them to help you remind you that it's, that's not necessarily terrain, but to kind of treat it in some ways like a barricade, only when you're determining cover. So that's an important one to remember. Onto rules mistake number 3. It deals with vetoing. I have said in multiple videos that you cannot you cannot veto your opponent's advantage card. I'll be honest with you, I don't know where in the heck I got this one from. I think it was from my first day playing. There were a lot of people talking. Like, I think I played like 3 or 4 days after the rules first came out, and a lot of people were trying to absorb and discuss everything, and there were a lot of people asking questions on what you could and couldn't veto. And I think some folks kind of decided that we could only veto the mission and the primary and secondary objective, and I don't know. It's one of those cases where a couple of groupthink went wrong, and it's just stuck with me. Although that would be kind of cool if you couldn't veto your opponent's advantage card, but you absolutely can. And I think that's a situation where if I'm fishing for a certain card and my opponent, I finally get it, my opponent vetoes it. That's why there's the provision for if you run out of cards, you have to reshuffle and things like that. So yes, you absolutely can veto your opponent's advantage card, even though I have said that you cannot in I think at least 2 of my battle reports. So my bad. Sorry about that one. We'll go keep going. Rule number 4. It deals with suppression. So and this is actually a newer rules change, and this is one I definitely missed. It used to be that if you had a suppression token, you increased your cover level by 1, but now it's a slight change to that. It applies to people who have higher courage than 1. Basically, you only gain a cover benefit from suppression if you are suppressed, and what that means is you have a number of suppression tokens equal to or exceeding your courage value. So in other words, if you're a courage 2 unit and you have 1 suppression token, you no longer get that extra cover bonus. If you're a courage 3 unit and you have 2 suppression tokens or only 1, you still don't get that cover bonus. You have to have at least your current courage value. And so that's kind of a blessing and a curse for those characters that have increased courage, because they may not be able to rely on that +1 cover. And that is a new rule set, which, again, it's got pros and cons for both the defender and the attacker, so that's kind of cool. And I'll try to remember that one. So, and thanks to all you guys. And a lot of these have been brought to my attention through the comments. Some of it has been through in-person chat or emails or PMs and Discords and all of that stuff. So it's a combination of everybody. But thank you for helping keep me on my toes, even though it's a little embarrassing to be on a big platform and get the rules wrong. But I've been doing it. I've been getting rules wrong for over 10 years now. So I'm sure I'll get more wrong in the future. Moving on, that's number 4. Let's go to number 5. Immunity to deflect. I got this wrong in one of my earlier, I think it was maybe my second battle report for the new Legion. This one is it referenced a ruling, and I saw multiple people talking about it under multiple contexts. But the final ruling is that if an attack has immune to deflect, that basically just makes you immune to the damage portion. You still do, like the defender, if I'm Maul or whoever, you're shooting me with something immune to deflect, I do still get that surge to block. I still do get that part of what deflect grants. It doesn't make the entire attack throw the deflect keyword out the window. It just means the effect of deflect. In other words, that damage that could be returned, you're immune to that damage portion. That was from FFG's rules forum. Now, again, a lot of these, if you're watching these in the future, these could always potentially change. Immune to deflect could get changed again. They might rescind that ruling, but as of the latest ruling that I've read, that was one where I got that one wrong. And it may get reverted again in the future. I'm not sure. Moving on to number 6, there have been a couple of cases. I think this was more in the first one. It is only going to come up every once in a while, but it's like for example, it deals with the cover and dodge. Basically, apply dodge and cover. So if you have a vehicle that you're worried about impact hitting the vehicle, the apply dodge and cover step, I hadn't applied it correctly in a couple of situations, and this is mostly because of the big changes to cover and how different they are. That if somebody was attacking me and I think I was running the lat, for example, that has cover 1. So normally vehicles don't get cover anymore, unless of course they have it normally. They don't get cover from terrain. Is actually the ruling. So if a vehicle were to have cover innately, like the snow speeder or the lat, for example, and I'm firing and I roll 3 hits, you could still roll that cover 1, and if you happen to roll 3 blocks, then all my impact wouldn't matter. Same thing would be if you had dodge tokens. You'd have a chance to spend those before the applied dodge, because the applied dodge and cover happens before the modify dice step, so then before impact would take hold. And so that's an important thing. So and I think that that timing step, I believe, has always been there, but due to the changes to things in that timing step, like how cover works, I think has led to my just confusion on how to resolve the whole thing. And again, it's something that only happens once in a while. People used to always ask, well, why does the snow speeder even have cover 1 if it's got armor? And that's exactly the reason why. I think that rule's been in there since the beginning, but because cover is different now, it made me kind of get an error on the timing in that one. So that one's on me. Well, they're all on me, aren't they? So, and number 7 is wounds. I had said that that it doesn't really matter where the wounds go because they just go to the unit now, and that is just totally wrong. However, the spirit in context in one of the videos, it's kind of still true from a certain point of view, and I'll elaborate on what I mean by that. Yes, wounds are still assigned to a specific model. So if I've got rebel troopers and I've got the leader and I've got 4 other rebel troopers and I've got a Z6 or Z6 if you're outside the United States. If you use the metric system, it's probably a Z6 for you, but we don't. So, but if I'm running that miniature, yes, I'm gonna put the wound on him second to last. You know, it's going to be generic trooper for the first 5 wounds, and then the Z6 or Z6, and then the leader last. That's just the way it's going to always be. I can't even imagine a case and that I would want to do it otherwise. And so for most cases, you're basically just putting the wound on the unit. The reason I say you just put it on the unit at this point is because they did remove the whole corner sniping or basically or like a scope sniping. Basically, it used to work out that if you could only see one model, and this is original Legion rules. If you could only see the heavy, if I could only see that Z6, then that's the only one that could suffer wounds, and so I could get that one wounded, I would have to kill that one guy. And that's not the case anymore. So now the ruling is, if I can only see one guy, then that's the maximum number of wounds that can be assigned to that unit from this attack. You still get to put them wherever you want. Of course, following the rules that if it's a multi-wound model, a guy who has a wound already has to get the next wound, and also leaders have to be assigned wounds last. So with all of that kind of factoring in, it kind of doesn't matter because it's going to follow a logical flow. But there are some cases where it absolutely does matter. And that's why it's important to point out this rules correction. Because in the case of something like the Bad Batch, where every model has a completely different effect, you can't just assign one to the unit and then later on when the situation changes and all of a sudden I'm closer range. Oh, I never wanted it to go on crosshair. It's what you have. So in a case like Bad Batch, it's way more important to follow the rules correctly, whereas if it's a rebel trooper unit, then it's obvious it's going to go on a generic trooper first. However, if we're following the rules here, technically, even with a rebel trooper unit, you're assigning it to one model, you're picking that model, and that model comes off the board. But in multi-wound situations, make sure you're being very clear on which unit gets the wound. Because you're not just putting it on the unit card. You're not just putting wounds wherever anymore. So that's those are 7 rules that I got wrong. I'm sure it won't be the last. I'm curious if you want to share some of the rules that you got wrong down in the comments section. I think we've all made mistakes with rulings, especially if you play more than one game. Now, I'd say this, it's a lot easier to get the rules right all of the time if you really, really focus on only one game. But I like to play a variety of different games, and of course, every time you learn a new game, whether it's Age of Sigmar, or Cyberpunk, or Star Wars Armada, or Star Wars X-Wing, or Star Wars Legion, or you're playing different versions of Star Wars Legion that have their own rule sets, like that Special Ops, that Spec Ops thing, or something like that, it can be very easy to get rules confused the more games you play. And so it's important for us to keep each other in check, and I thank you guys for doing that. All right, that is going to do it for today's video. A big thanks to my patrons. Patrons are amazing. You guys definitely help make this whole channel possible. I want to thank you guys so much for your continued support. If you're interested in that or joining our Discord or social media, there's links to all of that in the video description below. And that's going to do it for today. I want to thank you all so much for watching. Big thanks to everybody who has helped answer my little rules failings, and I will talk to you later. May the Force be with you. Live long and prosper. Be excellent to each other. Party on, dudes. Always wash your socks and have a great day. Oh, I did it backwards that time. Did you notice? I didn't end with always wash your socks. Oh, I just did.